Welcome to Built to Work, the podcast that gets its hands dirty, dives into the grit, and uncovers the heart of what makes the blue-collar world tick. I'm Colin, your host, and I'm sitting down with the people who keep our world running. From those tackling the tough jobs no one else dares to do, to the HR professionals working overtime to find the labor force we desperately need. Whether you're in the trenches or behind the scenes, this podcast is for anyone who values hard work, determination, and stories that build the backbone of our workforce. So grab your gloves, your coffee, or your clipboard. It's time to get to work. Welcome to another episode of Built to Work. Today I am here with my friend, associate, Brent Taylor. Thank you so much for being here, Brent.
Thanks for having me, Colin. I'm excited to be on the podcast.
Yeah, so Brent and I have known each other for definitely over a year now.
Yeah.
Probably getting close to 2 years about now.
Yeah.
And Brent has a really cool company that he owns. It's called KC CFO. And we actually utilize your services.
Yep.
So can you please tell everybody what KC CFO is, what you guys do, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so we're a fractional CFO firm. So we work with companies that are growing and usually bumping into complexities and need a little bit of help kind of on top of probably just their normal accounting. Sometimes actually we'll get called in to help maybe even a startup, and we'll come in and just help kind of diagnose and give them some guidance on what they need. But our bread and butter is to come into a company that usually has a base layer of accounting. Maybe they have an accounting manager or a controller. Maybe they're outsourcing that, and to kind of come in and complement and sort of be on top of that and work with the business owners to drive growth and do it in a smart way. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's awesome. So Brent is actually our CFO. So you guys are an outsourced CFO, fractional CFO. So that means instead of us having to hire, somebody that costs, a whole lot of money, maybe we don't have enough volume of work to justify a full-time internal CFO. That's when an outsourced or fractional CFO comes into play, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, prior to this world, I think this outsourced world, this fractional world existing, a lot of companies felt like, hey, I have to get to a certain size and use a pretty significant size to be able to hire a full-time CFO because they're expensive, you have the benefits, the payroll taxes and all that. So this world, I think, has opened up, the possibilities for a lot of companies at a lot smaller levels to get some of that help that historically weren't used to being able to get that help. And a lot of companies are growing. If you're a $10 million company, you probably don't have enough going on that you need a full-time CFO. So kind of getting that part-time fractional help is really beneficial.
Yeah. So we have paired the fractional CFO then with an outsourced accounting team. And for me, we haven't really missed a beat. Like anytime I need to get a hold of you and I'm like, hey, I have a CFO, I have a financing question, I have an introduction question, a banking question, I just call you, and then you have the answer. So it's weird to say that you're even like outsourced because it feels like you're part of our team.
Yeah.
All right, you're on the meetings, you're part of it. You have the high level discussions with us, and so that's been awesome. Like to leverage that. And you're right. Like I reach out to you a couple times a week. I don't need a full time CFO in here, so it makes sense.
Yeah,
it really does. One of the goals that you have for yourself is that you want to help these companies grow, right? Small, mid-sized companies grow to a point. And what is the ultimate goal of that growth when you're helping them?
I have two goals for a company. One goal is we grow into a point where maybe they get acquired. It's a big success story for us. And then ultimately the more typical goal is that we almost grow ourselves out of a job to where the company's gotten to a certain point where they need a full-time CFO. And that's a success story for us and one that we're excited to sort of, have to exit a company because of that. And in that situation, we'll then kind of help them identify who that replacement will be to be full-time and kind of help with this very smooth transition. So
transition over the role that you had been doing to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it that your goal is to work yourself out of a job.
Right.
We're seeing that a little bit right now with with Doge, right? Elon wants to work himself out of his Doge job. See how that goes. But that's been okay. So that's awesome. How did you get into the fractional CFO world?
That's a great question. So I started my career, I was at a Big Four accounting firm, and then I was at a large health system for quite a few years, and I married a small business owner. And, it's when you're at a giant company, a lot of the problems, you don't really actually there's a department for that problem, right? It's like, oh, this comes in, this is a problem, that goes over there. Well, when I got to kind of see my wife's business, I'm like, all these different departments don't exist. It's usually the business owner that has to figure all these things out. And so I helped her actually buy her business, finance it, set up the infrastructure, and just kind of saw that world. And just, I'm like, wow, it was kind of fun. It was impactful. And I'm like, I'm helping guide, a company. And it was a very small business, but just I had little sparks going off. And I was like, whatever that was, I want to do some more of that.
Okay.
This about 6.5 years ago, which is kind of crazy to think about. So sparks kind of start flying, and actually that was probably like 8 years. I needed about 1.5 years to convince my wife to let me, quit my good paying job. But when I did, it's funny, at the time, the term fractional wasn't really a big term at that point, or even outsourced. So I was calling myself basically, I'm consulting, and so I had all these different terms. And in the past, I'd say 2 to 3 years, that term fractional has definitely become a much more understood and used term, and more people are getting into it. But it's been an absolute blast getting to work with companies and business owners that are growing, that are hiring people, that are adding locations, and that are maybe bringing on new banking partners. So it's been a blast.
Yeah, it's been huge. One of the things I love is being able to leverage your Rolodex, right? For those of you who don't know what a Rolodex is, it's your contact list from the old days. But being able to leverage that, and one of the first things that we did when we acquired this company, even before we acquired the company, we started working with you. And we said, hey, we need a fractional CFO. We want some guidance as we go through this purchase process for the business. So we started having conversations with you. And then even before the business closed, or right after it did, we started interviewing new banks. Because we bought a company that's different than where we are, so we wanted a local banking relationship. And just being able to leverage your contacts has been really huge. And that's part of what a CFO does, is help fix those things or make them run smoother. So that's been great.
And that's one thing, there's so many things that have happened that I didn't anticipate. But when you get to work with a lot of different companies, you're working with a lot of different bankers, you're working with a lot of different business coaches, you're working with other fractional firms that maybe offer HR or marketing. So you get to kind of know this great, I guess we'll call it Rolodex of people, and you see who work well with clients and who serve them well. And, you get into a new client, new company, you see some of the problems or issues or needs, and you're like, hey, we've kind of done this over there. So you can kind of bring that in, and you don't have to recreate the wheel a lot of times.
What I found interesting is you bring those people to the table, right? We say, hey, we're going to go, we don't want to have our own an accounting person. We want to outsource, because then we're going to have scale that we can leverage as we grow. And if one person quits, there's somebody to plug right in. We don't have to go through that hiring process. It's been funny how we eventually connected, but we have two places in our life outside of this where we overlap, right? And the first one was my mother-in-law used to work for the accounting firm. She was a junior partner. A firm that we ended up bringing on. And you're like, hey, you should really talk to these guys. I was like, okay.
I've heard of them.
I know them. I've been to their office before. And then the second one is your wife's company. Right? So she's a dentist.
Yes, she is.
And a guy that I go to church with is now her partner at the dentist. And so I went down there and I saw him. He's my buddy. I had him clean my teeth. And then I'm talking to Adam on the way back. And he's like, oh, yeah, was it down there? I was like, yeah, it was. He goes, that's Brent's wife's place. And I was like, no way. So somehow our lives have managed to connect and not hit until we started this.
Well, yeah, because now we can talk about how's Premier doing, and I can also say, have you been flossing?
Perfect. And I have been. So last time they had to drill a little bit, and I don't want that anymore.
But it is kind of funny what a small world it is when you get out there and you have all these different connections. And I mean, for Kansas City, that's one unique thing I think is it is a smaller community, smaller than you probably think. So,
I've always said Kansas City is a very small city.
Like
a very small big city, because you always seem to run into people you know and just cross paths, and the networks, especially when you get into some of the professional realms, those networks just cross a lot.
They absolutely do.
Yeah. So we obviously espouse the benefits of outsourcing some of our roles, and you do too. You believe in it because that's what you do. And it's great. So can you share with me, and you don't have to disclose any companies' names or anything like that, but give us a story of a company that you were able to walk into, either make a big change or help and kind of achieve the goal, and how that might not have been possible without leveraging your services.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a few that come to mind, but I got introduced to a company at one point that had brought in a new COO. This company had been around for about 25 years and had a really good history, a lot of years of growth and profits. and just had some stumbles. And they had probably 3 years of them to where they all of a sudden, they weren't growing, they weren't profitable, they took on some debt that they shouldn't have. Some of these, I'd say, merchant working capital, super high interest rate loans that unfortunately some companies fall into the trap of taking out. So I got pulled into there with this new COO and just said, hey, take a look at things. I'm just curious to brainstorm with you to see what you think and if you think there's a path out of this. And we got in there and there was definitely a path. I mean, the company had a really good product and some services. So, interestingly, and I see this a lot with companies' financials, we got in and the books were a complete mess. So it was actually hard to understand where had the company been? Like when did they start, when did kind of the slip really start happening? And so one of the things I did is I introduced the company to an outsourced accounting services firm. And they came in, they rolled up their sleeves with us, and they kind of helped make sense of the financials. They rebuilt processes. And one thing that was unique, I think, about that, instead of just trying to hire somebody, is, they're working with a lot of different companies too. They have quite a few people on their team. So they were able to quickly come in, diagnose, restructure, clean up, and kind of get the financials in a good spot really quick. So then we were able to take that and kind of really actually start making some good decisions. And, this company had a lot of different locations. They had never really had an income statement to figure out how's each location doing. Are they making money? Are they not? And once we kind of got the financials fixed, what we found out is, they had 3 locations that were single-handedly, creating a giant loss for the company. So that helped give us basically the ammunition to go close those and kind of, just get back to ground zero so they could start taking off again. And probably within about 2 years, they were back to growing, they were profitable and doing some cool things. So that was a fun story. But, again, to be able to bring in that outsourced partner for accounting that could quickly jump in and get going, that was critical. So.
And by utilizing your services, they were able to save effectively a lot of money as well over hiring a full-time CFO.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah, I think if you look back, my team, we were able to help save their company for probably a fraction of what it would have cost if they would have hired somebody full-time.
Yeah, that's great. One of the things that I love about this, and this is something you could speak to as well, is letting people or companies focus on their core competencies, right? Especially small business owners, even big businesses, right? Because we work with a number of really large businesses, and we have a specialty, and we're good at our specialty. And you have a specialty, and you're good at that. Have you seen benefits from, or just working with small business owners? Like, hey, maybe this small business owner doesn't understand this. Like, that's how you focus on that, right? So with us, I know you said, hey, I've got the finances, right? You guys focus on sales and operations, right? Is that kind of the way you typically work with the other small businesses that you work with?
It is, and one of the things that I just consistently see in the small to mid-sized business world is the business owner always wears too many hats, right? And that's pretty natural because it's usually that company is that person's baby. They live and breathe it. They think about it throughout the night. So you get in there and you get to know the owner, and it's like, oh, nothing can happen in this company without you. And hopefully you never get hit by a bus because this company would fail to exist and all the employees would be in a tough spot. So just, I think, taking off and handing out the different hats and the different responsibilities and the different roles, when I see a business owner do that, that usually means that company is going to grow and good things are going to happen, right? So what was really fun to work with you and Adam on is you guys from the get-go, and I know you have some entrepreneurial background and you guys have learned some lessons. From day one, you were like, hey, we're going to try to stay in our lane and do what we each do best. We want you to come in. We want you to help figure out who's going to kind of handle the accounting. And you guys have done that both in the HR payroll space too. You guys have done that in a lot of different areas. And most companies, it takes them a while to get to that point. So you guys out of the gate with Premier, it was super cool because it's like, let's put the right infrastructure in place. Let's put the right partners where they need to be, and let's get this company prepared to serve our clients well and to be able to grow.
Yeah, that's true. And we learned that the hard way, right? I go back and say, okay, with our first company, property management company, man, we screwed up every single internal process that we could and learned all those lessons. Because Adam and I were trying to do it all. We weren't And we kind of had our own lanes, but too, like, man, so much of that operational stuff, which is what a lot of people outsource, is their operational stuff. They don't typically outsource their sales or, BD, or their core competency. It's that operational stuff. So, I mean, man, Adam was having to fight through payroll. We were having to fight through HR, and then he was having to handle all the accounting. We had one other person that was kind of handling that as well. And just realizing, it's like, there's so many things and we weren't experts in them. So they were getting done, but maybe not correctly or got done well. And even to the point where it's like, okay, the other person that's helping generate invoices, we were missing a bunch of invoices, right? You can't afford to do that long before you don't have a company anymore. And so, allowing the professionals to come in.
And then you're finding yourselves all of a sudden like, we just spent our whole day trying to do invoicing. When surely you guys could have probably spent your time in a different way that would have been more beneficial and impactful for the company.
Oh yeah, there were so many more things. I felt bad for Adam. He had some really long weeks there for a long time where he was shouldering all of that stuff.
Yeah, that's good for Adam though.
Yeah, that's been some character for him. We started out, we were running payroll through QuickBooks, which is a fine system. But I had started it, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know about state tax ID numbers or filings, and there was a lot to unscrew. You're a business owner. You're supposed to know everything, though, right? And once we learned that wasn't the case, and we brought in the professionals to help, we obviously didn't know you back then, but property management was our old business. It's a very niche accounting system because it's integrated into the property management software. And there's a bunch of different ones. So it's not like, QuickBooks is QuickBooks. It's like, no, software A and software B and C and D and E, they're all different in the way they operate, and all their reports are different. So we ended up bringing in a real estate professional accounting firm and let them handle it. And that was kind of at the point where we were like, whoa, this is the way to do this.
I just got a bunch of my time back. I've got somebody that knows what they're doing. They do this for a lot of different companies. Absolutely.
Brought in experts. They did expert things, and we could focus on our core competency. So as you look forward to the future, I think that, fractional CFOing is going to continue to be a thing. I think there's some people out there also looking maybe like fractional COOs at points as well. Are you guys looking to grow your company and your service offerings?
Yeah, we are. I mean, we have a small team. There's three of us, but we're small and nimble, and we're picky on who we work with just because we want to grow, but we're going to have pretty smart growth. And it's we want to work with the companies like Premier that are going to be very smart about it and that want to grow and want to do good things for their company and their people. So we're going to keep growing. And what's interesting is, in the fractional world, which by the way, I love the fractional CFOing term. I might actually coin that CFOing.
You can have it.
Yeah, that's good. But I'm seeing it in like the HR world. There's fractional HR now. There's fractional COOs. Starting to see fractional CMOs. So I think that the potential for companies out there to bring in partners and experts in all these different areas without having to hire a full-time person is going to be really interesting. And they're probably going to be able to bring these people on, obviously, for cheaper than it would have been to hire them full time. So I think you're going to really see in the coming years, this is a model that just becomes very normal.
And it's maybe a little bit the professionalization, if you will, of the gig economy. Right?
It is to an extent.
You're going to hate this. You're like the Uber for CFOs, right?
No, I need an app.
You need an app. No, but it's kind of leveraging that people can wrap their mind around that now, and without the advancements in cell phones and technology and just what we've gotten used to, especially through COVID, as those apps really got big, people might not be able to understand that concept. I'm just going to rent this person's time instead of, I need to bring on this full employee with all of the associated costs and burden, et cetera, like that.
And one of the really unique things happening in accounting right now is there's a shortage of accountants.
Really?
And even the pipeline coming from the colleges, there's just not as many. I guess accounting's not all that cool, but I don't believe that. But
it's the coolest.
So I do think this fractional outsourced world for accounting and for CFOs, it's only going to grow. And I think that shortage is also going to be part of the reason why it's growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I even see sometimes like a fractional CFO, that's great. It does end up saving you money. But sometimes when people outsource, they'll actually outsource to a service or someone that's actually maybe a little bit more expensive than bringing in your own internal. but you're getting to leverage their expertise, and their expertise makes them more productive than your own internal person, or allows you to focus on something else. Where it's like, okay, that is more expensive, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, it's more, you're looking at outcomes, and it's not so much like how much time did you spend. It's like, I'm bringing in expertise and outcomes that you wouldn't have gotten potentially otherwise. So I think that's a mind shift that I think a lot of companies are making and understanding. Like, sometimes it's worth spending that money for what you're getting, absolutely, the value that you're getting in return.
For sure. So for people to say, hey, or you to say, it's time to hire a full-time person. Is that do you see like a revenue bracket that fits into, or is it like a workload? Where do you see that happen? That somebody then hires their own full-time CFO and replaces you?
That's it. So I look at this two different ways. One, I look at it, if I look at kind of the range of companies we've gotten to work with over the years, revenue-wise, they're probably anywhere from $2 million to $30 million a year in annual revenue. There's some nuances within that. And then probably from like just a employee perspective, probably between like that 10 to 100. So in our experience, once companies start hitting around 100, they're probably starting to look at potentially a full-time CFO. The other thing that we've learned over the years is the thing a company probably needs sometimes first before a full-time CFO is a full-time controller. Just because of the level of activity and transactions, and maybe there's multiple accountants, just to kind of oversee that and to ensure that you have just good accounting processes and timely financials. So sometimes a company might bring in a full-time controller first and keep that fractional CFO for a little while longer, but somewhere around that 100 employee mark is when I feel like, that full-time type role starts to make sense.
100 employees, 30 million in revenue, somewhere in there.
And again, different by industry sometimes, but that's kind of what we've seen. So,
that's great. Well, I can't wait to kick you out of your job or replace you, I guess.
It'll be a success story.
It's a success story for sure. All right. Well, Brent, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for all you do for us. You're a rock star. If you need a fractional CFO, hit this guy up and he will take care of you guys.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. This was a great conversation.
Appreciate it.